wickedness that Ham committed ought to frighten us. The phrase, the curse of Ham, may have been brought to your attention, and you may have pondered the question of who Ham is and why his affliction is important enough to warrant discussion. Given that the Ethiopians are Ham's direct descendants, it is not surprising that the curse was placed upon them. In Genesis 9 verse 18, the Bible informs us that Ham was the father of Canaan and that he was the son of Noah. Moreover, the Bible describes Ham as the father of Canaan. Shem, Ham, and Japheth were the three sons of Noah who emerged from the Ark of the Covenant. As a result of the curse, Ham would end up becoming the father of Canaan. Shem and Japheth were Ham's two brothers to begin with. Together with their father Noah, they were among the few of people who survived a catastrophic deluge that wiped out every other human being on the planet. Noah was the one guy among all others who was considered to be good and upright, and God had selected him to be so. Genesis 6 verse 9 describes this event as taking place at a time when the Nephilim were gaining prominence. Noah was a man of righteousness, a man who was just and honest before God, and he was blameless in the generation that dominated wickedness. Noah moved and lived in such a way that he was in constant commune with God. God made the decision to cleanse the tainted earth by means of a massive flood, and he chose to begin afresh with Noah, his wife, his sons, and their spouses, as well as a pair of every living creature, both male and female. Following the construction of the ark, Noah and his family, together with the animals, boarded it. All of the living things that were still on land met their end as soon as the rain started to fall. Ham, the father of Canaan, was inside his tent when he chanced to discover his father nude. To his father's embarrassment, Ham informed his two brothers that his father was already naked. Considering that Ham himself may have been discovered intoxicated and disciplined by his wise father in the past, it is possible that Ham felt content when he saw his father in a condition that was comparable to his own. Individuals who stray from the norm and take pleasure in the errors of others, even those who have really repented of their own errors, are not able to take pleasure in the errors experienced by others. The second error that Ham made was that he communicated this information to his brothers in a public setting, making fun of his father in an effort to make him look silly. When any kind of immorality is seen as a reason to laugh, it is a very improper thing to do. Fools mock at sin, but sin mocks fools, states the Bible's Proverbs 14 verse 9 verse. Nevertheless, there is kindness as well as the favor and blessing of God among those who are upright. By taking pride in things that ought to make us feel sad instead, we are doing something that is wrong, 1 Corinthians 5 verse 2. And you are a pompous and haughty person. Is it not more appropriate for you to have expressed sorrow and humiliation in order to ensure that the individual who committed this reprehensible act would be excluded from your fellowship? Let's get this straight. It is not only unethical but also ethically inappropriate to bring to light or publicize the shortcomings of other people, particularly those of our parents, to whom we owe the deepest respect and reverence. Noah was a man of great significance, but he was also a man of moral integrity. It was a really disrespectful gesture on his part to reveal his error in such a public setting. It was because of his father that Ham was able to escape the flood. However, today just his ingratitude is visible. Considering that Ham is being referred to as the father of Canaan in this particular setting, this serves as an important reminder. Due to the fact that Ham is a parent himself, he ought to have shown a greater degree of regard and devotion for his own father. Nevertheless, Shem and Japheth acted in the opposite manner. Their behaviors are in stark contrast to those of Ham, illustrating the significant moral divide that exists between exhibiting respect and disgrace. Genesis 9 verse 23 of the Bible. At that moment, Shem and Japheth grabbed a robe, positioned it over each of their shoulders, and moved backward in order to conceal their father's nakedness. As a result of their faces being turned away, they were unable to see their father in his nude state. It was not just that they refused to look at themselves, but they also made sure that no one else could. This taught us to be compassionate when it comes to the errors and humiliations that other people have committed. As opposed to joining those who point fingers or spread gossip, we need to make an effort to cover up these shortcomings or at the very least see them in the most favorable light possible, treating people in the same manner that we would want to be treated ourselves. Always keep in mind that we need to cover the faults of everyone with a garment of love, as we were instructed to do in 1 Peter 4 verse 8. Above all, have fervent and unwavering love for one another because love covers a multitude of sins. It disregards cruel behavior and acts in a selfless manner, seeking the best for other people. It is also important that we show respect to our elders and those in charge, and we should avoid pointing out their shortcomings. As other indications from the past suggest, if the wrongdoing of Ham is comparable to the sin that occurred in the Garden of Eden, then we may examine the similarities between these two occurrences in order to get a deeper comprehension of its significance. Even if this does not indicate that Ham's error is identical to what Eve did, we may still discover a method to compare the two types of mistakes. First things first, let's make a very essential observation. Both Eve and Ham were fooled by what they saw. In the same way that Ham stared at his father when he was nude, Eve looked at the fruit and wanted it because it seemed to be delicious. Have he been seduced by what he observed? Incite people to behave in a manner that is contrary to their moral values, or brothers in religion. There is a warning in 1 Corinthians 8 verses 9 to 13. It is important to use caution, however, so that the exercise of your rights does not become a barrier for others who are vulnerable. In light of the fact that if someone with a weak conscience saw you, with all of your knowledge, eating in the temple of an idol, wouldn't that person feel empowered to consume the food that is offered as a sacrifice to idols? Consequently, this feeble brother or sister, for whom Christ died, is annihilated by the knowledge that you possess. Because of this, you are committing a sin against Christ when you sin against them in this manner and harm their fragile conscience. Therefore, if the food I consume leads to my brother or sister falling into sin, I guarantee that I will never consume meat again. This is because I do not want to be the one to bring them down. In the Bible, was Noah a poor example of a father? Uncovering nakedness is a word that suggests engaging in sensuous activity. Even if Ham did not have any sexual contact with his father, it would still be improper for him to inform his two brothers about his father's condition. This is because Ham's father was now in a state of mental illness. In and of itself, such behavior was illegal. Just now, Ham had degraded a human being in public, and this particular human being was not your typical human. Ham, who is Noah's son and the most upright man of his day, was raised by this individual, who was his father. What is the explanation for the fact that the most morally upright guy in the world had such a dreadful son? Dear child, we have a lesson for you here. In many instances, parents do have a substantial influence on the children they are responsible for raising, and they have the ability to have a tremendous impact on their children. However, this is not always the case. It is quite likely that almost every adult who is reading this statement is acquainted with respectable individuals who have brought up children whose opinions are diametrically contrary to those of their own parents. There are parents that are wonderful, caring, and fantastic, yet they have children who are dreadful. In spite of the fact that they are terrible parents, there are children who are very thoughtful and moral. Just because you are a decent person does not mean that you are also a good parent. This is yet another lesson that may be gleaned from the account of Noah, the most morally upright man who ever lived, who had a son who was evil. Despite the fact that there are a lot of great individuals in the world, not everyone is aware of how to bring up a decent kid. A significant number of parents in today's society, even some of the most educated, are of the opinion that love is all that is required to bring up a kid who is both healthy and successful. On the other hand, if the only thing that a kid gets is love, and there are no obligations put on the child in return, then it is quite probable that the child will develop into a self-centered adult. A book that is absolutely true in every way. The Bible is the Bible. Every single family that is mentioned in the book of Genesis is, therefore, an illustration of what we would consider to be dysfunctional in the society that we live in today. This is the gift that the Bible bestows onto each and every individual in the existence of the globe who is struggling with dysfunctional relations. Being a good parent is a trip that is not only demanding and hard, but it also has the potential to be the most fulfilling and wonderful one you will ever take. In the Bible, there are several principles that we might follow in order to successfully lead ourselves.